I get that he has to have a lot of good qualities to temper that cockiness, I think.
Yeah. There
But
are
they are
moments
there.
he does play it so well, but then there's moments he just goes off the rails a little bit.
j'arrive à j'ouvre hold my edge d'évoquer.
Welcome to Ocas, your
Fair
island
enough.
gave me to All Things Geek. I'm your host, Carl, and joining me tonight, returning. Have you calmed down from that little rant, Martin?
Not half. You wait till you get me started.
And joining us, first time on the show, is it Eileen or Eileen? How do you prefer it? I didn't check that before I waited
Eileen.
on you. Eileen, all right. Welcome, Eileen, to the show. So tonight we are doing the retrospective on probably the OG of geek culture in general. Like, would nerd culture even exist without Star Trek? Like, the convention scene probably wouldn't. Like, conventions, Star Trek, they had the first convention. There's like, just changed. This is like changed the kind of the landscape of basically culture as we know it, this show, didn't it?
Certainly did.
Absolutely. Yeah. So many things that you watch and you think, that wasn't just original. That was completely, had never been done before.
Yeah.
Everything that they do is such a trope now.
Yeah, and it's like I said, Martin, we're involved in organising Ocon, and it's just I thought like conventions as we know them probably would not exist without this show, because that's when it got cancelled early. That's how fans kept it alive, was conventions and inviting the actors along, and it was just these tiny little get-togethers, and it's kind of just morphed into the convention scene as we know it, and it's kind of interesting. It's not so much a big part of the convention scene anymore, but some of the youngsters, as we'll say, Martin, just they don't realise how much they owe Star Trek for that.
Yeah, they certainly don't. I was at the first official UK Star Trek only convention 2016 in Birmingham. I think it was the first official UK one, anyway, the first one that was endorsed by CBS and all that. And it was just incredible. There was loads of old people, by which I mean as old as me or older. There was loads of them, but there was also loads of youngsters too. Absolutely, stacks of them. That was very pleasing to see. That's one of the things about the original Star Trek. It hadn't been done before, and it was all new, but it obviously hit the right nerve at the right time. The fact that the world was so divided back then. Well, I guess it's getting a little bit that way again just now if you watch current affairs. But the world was so divided, and the ordinary man on the street still knew that, Russians and different colours of skins were probably all just people at the end of the day, and that program was really reached out to help reinforce that.
Yeah. So I think, like with all good things, start at the beginning, because the cage, I think we have to talk about this, because it's very interesting to go and watch the pilot, because we always associate with Star Trek this kind of bright, optimistic future, which I feel doesn't necessarily come across in the cage. The cage is really very somber, like from the start. And of course, I'm trying to remember the name, Jeffrey Hunter, was it, who played Pike in this episode? Captain Pike.
Oh, yes.
I think that's the name. Someone can check that for me. But even he's talking about some tragic event to the Doctor and that, and I can't remember who the Doctor was.
Yeah, it wasn't Bones.
Yeah, it wasn't, but it is. It's just a very somber atmosphere, and it goes through the whole of this episode. And yeah, what's your thoughts on the cage, guys? We'll get your opinion, because I think it has to be analysed, because it's quite interesting. This is the way it could have gone.
Captain Pike is very, very handsome.
I take it that's all iterations of him. I think Anson Mount as well gets that compliment as well, does he?
I was always a bit shocked by that, because I think my first, way back whenever I watched Star Trek the first time, my first introduction to Pike was later, when he's much less good looking. No spoilers, but, do we remember what Pike looks like later?
And
Don't
Oh,
remember
yes.
this?
Like a Dalek.
Yeah.
No, he's in a wheelchair.
Okay.
And he's
wheelchair, yeah.
immobile. He can't talk, and he's got
And-
white hair, and you can't even tell if it's the same actor. I don't think it is. But anyway, yes, he's very good looking. But yes, also it's very dark.
Yes,
It's sort
it
of-
is.
The cage seems a bit odd to me because it's there's so many things that aren't quite right.
Yeah.
Because some of the characters aren't there, and you can tell it's a bit of a dry run, and it kind of didn't, it's not the same as what we're used to. So it
Mhm.
sort of jars a little bit for me.
I agree
Yeah, I
because
guess. Yeah.
watching it, I've read the reviews online which say, the cage wasn't aired originally for reasons of it being too scary. Back then, they didn't want anything that portrayed it, Americans as being able to be manipulated mentally and to be
Yeah.
shown something that wasn't what they believed it was. They thought that was too far-fetched, but realistically, that's
Yeah.
probably a little bit true because of the Cold War era and all that, but realistically, it looks like there's so much changed from the actual first episode that aired. As you say, the captain's a different guy. He's got a kind of different vibe to him. As you say, the slightly
Yeah.
depression thing. He's actually talking to that white-haired doctor. They're talking about the difficulties of being in charge of hundreds of lives on the starship and making the decisions of possibly affecting the lives of hundreds of people on the planets to visit. So yeah, they do get a little bit dark with it, but the uniforms are different, the main characters are different, and I think they've done one of those American things where they've just shown it to a select audience and said, yeah, this isn't quite working. And I'm glad that they changed it, because by episode 2 they've got the super bright coloured
Yeah. Colourful uniforms. Yeah.
uniforms. They've got Uhura, who just walks
Mhm.
on stage, and all eyes are on her for a good reason. She's a very powerful presence, apart from being a beautiful woman in a kind of leading role. So and I think I can't remember. I don't think season 2 that Bones had made an appearance, or Scotty, but maybe they had. It certainly wasn't the original Doctor in that first episode. No.
Yeah.
Did you know that it was Majel Barrett playing number 1 in episode 1,
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
who also played Nurse Chapel, who also did the voice of the computer, who also played Deanna Troy's mother in Next Generation, I believe,
Botswana. Yeah.
and who was also married to Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
You can just imagine.
So,
Imagine
yeah.
Gene.
And she
You
wasn't.
can imagine him going home and saying, "We're shooting tomorrow. It's a hectic schedule. We've got 30 episodes. That might not seem like much to you, dear, but any chance you could just, pop in and fill in for some of the actors are off sick."
Could you play 6 different roles, please?
Yeah.
I don't think he was married to her at the time that she was number 1, but I would like to check on that. You were right. It is
Yeah.
Jeffrey Hunter, by the way, Christopher Pike.
All right. I thought so. I was hoping that'd be right. Which, yeah, I remember this
Yeah.
aired it was in the 90s. They aired this in the UK for the first time. I think it was like this thing where they actually showed it to everyone so they could see, and it is just an interesting artifact. And how they later repurposed it in the show was actually quite ingenious what they came up with.
Yes.
But it's like that episode on its own. It's an episode of Star Trek where people sit and watch an episode of Star Trek, basically.
It's
the meta-analysis.
ahead of its time.
See, Star Trek predicting the future as always.
Oh, absolutely. But one of the funny things about that original Cage episode, when he's talking to the ship's doctor and the kind of somber mood, and the
Yeah.
ship's doctor comes in and sits down beside him, and he starts moaning that what are you pulling out of the medicine chest for me? Whatever it is, I don't want it just now. We've got a problem on our hands. I'll have it later. But the doctor pulls out a good old bottle of some sort of alcohol. You're not quite sure exactly what it is. Probably was whiskey, I imagine. And he says to him, "Oh, no. I want you to open up and talk to me. And I know that a guy who will talk to you, his bartender, a lot sooner than he'll talk to his doctor," which I thought was quite funny and insightful and possibly true.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
It says a lot about
the
Tumbleweed.
60s,
He's just
doesn't it?
tumbleweeded me there.
Yes.
Come on, for crying out loud. And again.
Like I say, there'll be a lot of the 60s of this. I have to say, like when I I don't often rewatch TOS. It's probably the one I rewatch the least. And like getting prepared, I was like, all right, how bad? It's not aged as terribly as I thought. I still have issues with it, but there is like some real this is the thing that set it, and there's some genius, but there are some things where it has aged terribly, which I think we will get to. But yeah, the cage is it's just very interesting because I think the reception Gene got from the TV, they said it was too cerebral, basically. They wanted just a bit more fun and light-hearted, which all the criticisms of William Shatner aside, he is just a far better He's just a more real, this is the guy you want to go on adventures with, this Captain Kirk.
Yeah, he's far more
Certainly
charismatic.
seems very popular.
Yeah.
I don't really get it. I've never understood. I've always found him very wooden. People talking about him at the time talk about how amazingly good looking he is and how boyish he is. I don't know if it's just because I was a kid when I first saw him. I never thought he was good looking. I never thought he looked young. He always looks like an older man to me for some reason. You know, the way people from the 60s, 70s, even when our parents were 35 and you compare a 35-year-old now, our parents look way older. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. He always looked a bit older to me. And it's not just the misogyny that puts me off him. He's cocky. He's really cocky. And I know that goes hand in hand. There's even a line in The Enemy Within. There's a line. His good Kirk starts to become very indecisive. And Spock says to him, you can't tell the crew what's happened because you need to be 100% confident when you're leading it. I realize that you need to be 100% confident when you're leading this crew. And Kirk goes, oh yeah. He doesn't really, but that's the gist. He says, I know that. I don't know why I just forgot that. And so he becomes very indecisive. So I think that there's the ethos of you've got to fake it. You've got to be godlike. You've got to really, really pretend that you know what you're talking about a lot of the time in order to captain a spaceship. And I'm assuming that throughout the culture, that would mean in order to be the CEO of an organization, in order to have captained a British Navy vessel, in order to do anything where you're leading people, you need to pretend you know what you're doing. And that jars with me. I've just never felt that dishonesty and projecting yourself as something that you're not is ever the right way to lead people. So call me a hippie. So was Gene Roddenberry.
Yes.
So it's interesting how that kind of ethos crept through.
But it's interesting because in TNG, remember that episode where Picard and Beverly are mind linked? And he says, right, we'll go this way. This is the path. She goes, and because, you don't know you don't know that for sure, do you? No, not really. You do that all the time, don't you? He said, well, yeah, I've got to. I'm the captain. I can't pretend like I don't know what I'm doing half the time.
Exactly. That reminds me of that good joke where the mother says to her son, get out of bed. It's time for school. And her son says, I don't want to go to school today. And she's like, you get out of that bed. You're going to school. He's like, I don't want to go. None of the pupils like me. Is that you're going? None of the teachers like me. Just, you're the headmaster. Get out of bed and get to that school.
Do you know I've heard that before? But the punchline worked. Is all I'm going to say. I'd forgotten about that.
Excuse me.
So true. And we're all pretending all the time as adults.
Yeah.
But Picard, and I don't want to get into the classic, well, if you want to, we can get into the classic Kirk versus Picard argument. But Picard does it in such a way that I just, even as a teenager watching him, the person on TNG that I wanted most to be like was Picard, because he was never unreasonable. He was decisive, even though he didn't necessarily know what the right answer was. And he was a leader. And I don't find Kirk like that at all. I don't think Kirk would have listened to any suggestions from his crew, whereas I think Picard, if Worf is kind of in the background, even in season 1 when he wasn't really a chief of anything, he was just hanging around, Worf would be like, Captain, can I just make a suggestion? Picard would have listened.
Yeah.
Kirk would have said, sit your ass down.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stories about William Shatner's behaviour on set as well, which there's so many things we'll have to get into. But I think from there we can go into the easy topic, like favourite episode of the season. And I will go to Eileen here. Seeing as you're the new person, what's your top episode of this season? We did run a poll, so we'll see if it. I think you know what the results of the poll is, but we'll see if it agrees.
Yeah, I don't think it does. Because I think because it's so timely, What Are Little Girls Made Of, I thought was really, really
Okay.
interesting, because we're talking about the creation of the creation of life. Not only that, they didn't just talk about the creation of androids. They made really, really, it hung together terribly as an episode. There's a lot of things that didn't make sense about the pacing and about the, justifications for certain characters being in certain places at certain times. Even the justification for creating an android version of Kirk was just ridiculous. Like, would you allow them to do that without even, just lie down there, just lie down. Don't worry about what's about to happen. And then suddenly there's another one of you. I think we'd all have certain feelings about that. But they don't only create another version of Kirk, and they don't only talk about having created androids that are intelligent. They do two things that I think other programs and movies that have faced similar topics, and even us talking about AI now, we struggle to do. The first is that they really hone in on why Ruck does what he does, and he help him become aware of why he does what he does, and he realizes that survival trumps programming. So he has been programmed, or, like AI, we haven't programmed AI to want to survive, but it does. And that's scary. So Ruck kind of becomes aware of the fact that he actually does have agency if it comes to his own survival. And then the other thing that they do is they talk about uploading human consciousness, which I think at the moment most of us are just too scared to talk about, because I don't think we're that far away from it. I know this is a different conversation. We're getting into a whole different AI conversation here, but it was, considering this was, what year was this? 60, 61, 62, something like that?
56.
When did it first air?
I mean, the 50s was your golden age of like sci-fi short stories. So this is really fast that we've gone from the very first publication that ever talked about a robot was in 1920. It was a play called R.U.R. by a Czech writer called Karel Čapek.
Yeah,
and then
that's right.
Between 1920, that's not that long to get to talking about uploading consciousness, and perhaps other texts had done it before, I don't know. But anyway, that's my favorite episode for that reason, because it was very, very, very clever.
Okay. Martin,
I like that episode.
Or any opinions?
I like that episode, but Rock was too scary, because he just picks one of the scientists up and chucks him over the edge of a chasm. No hesitation. Normally in these kind of that era, you get warning. They walk up to somebody with that look of, I'm going to kill you. He just grabs him and chucks him over there, and you're like, shit, did that just happen? And he's so big and powerful, and then just disappears. And it kind of gives me the spooks a little bit, watching that one. And then on top of that, at the end of that episode, the android one, Kirk asks, when he's getting programmed, the android version of himself, he makes sure that the android version will say something to Spock, and he says to Spock, "You're a half-breed," which I think was rather brave. I mean, brave few words and all that, but I think it was rather brave. Maybe they just didn't care about the indigenous people of America at that time, and it was still okay to use something like that in that example where it was something that shouldn't be used and shouldn't be said. But still, I found that a little bit weird to say that.
Did they say half-breed quite a lot? Like, you could indicate that a character wasn't a nice person because they'd called Spock a half-breed. I feel like that's something they do frequently. Isn't it?
I think
I'm misremembering.
I think they might do that again in the episode where the terror, the balance of terror, where they introduce the Romulans, and again Spock gets kind of earmarked for sure as being related to the enemy. Coming back to the original question, I think my one's got to be back in time. Tomorrow is Today, with Joan Collins in it, in the Depression era. One, because at the start of it, it's got that classic stone circle. It's a kind of a Stonehenge kind of thing. It's just a big stone circle, but it's a time portal to other lands and other places. That iconic portal that's been used many a time ever since then. And then, of course, Joan Collins in it.
Maybe it was Callanish.
It could have been. So even though
It could have been Callanish.
it's not the most sci-fi episode from that respect, but I think it's probably my favourite.
Yeah, I had to correct you. It's City on the Edge of Forever.
City on the Edge of Forever, sorry.
Yes. No, I like that, and it's also although like not a huge fan of Kirk, it's what he says at the end when they're all about like what happened, and he just said, "Let's just get the hell out of here." And it's the performance of the three actors right at the end when they let Joan Collins die, and it's just the way the three of them react. It's like that is so well done. It's so emotional. I mean, what is it like? McCoy says, "Does he realize what he's done?" And just the way Spock says, he does. He realizes what he's done. It's like the weight of all this, this push, and then just that. It's just when Kirk just looks around, let's just get the hell out of here. Like it's affected him, which is quite unusual because a lot of the times Kirk just shrugs everything off, and for once we see these events matter to him.
That's true, especially since he's got basically a different woman in every episode, and it can't seem to mean that much to him. But yeah, it does affect him in that episode for sure.
Yeah, and it's just and also got to give big props to the writer DC Fontana, who wrote a lot of fantastic episodes. And she used the name DC Fontana because basically if she put her name Dorothy down, she knew they'd get rejected, her scripts. So even behind the scenes there were these
classic
battles going
female
on.
writer.
Yeah. And she wrote a lot of scripts for TNG, but that's when we get to S1 TNG, that could be an hours long discussion what went on there.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the stories of that are notorious.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So with that, and strangely enough, none of us actually mentioned the episode that I ran some polls in different Facebook groups yesterday to get this. The one that came out, the clear winner was Balance of Terror.
Where the Romulans are introduced.
Yes, Romulans, cloaking device, neutral zone, a lot of ideas that we now take for granted were introduced in this episode.
It's phenomenal how much was introduced this early of canon.
Yes.
Just almost everything can sort of hark back to TOS first season. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, and
I would have thought if you had asked me before rewatching this season 1 when the Romulans were introduced, I would have thought later. I would have thought they'd have been the baddies that you bring in later on, and that you'd have gotten rid of some other baddies first. But yeah, it's amazing that they've been there that whole time.
Yeah, well, it's interesting when you see how the Romulans are. They don't have what we now associate with the Romulans, because obviously it was the early days. They probably still didn't really have a clear idea. They were just the alien baddies for that week that somehow stuck with us, because we now think of them, very arrogant and aloof. But in that one, and I'm trying to remember, is it Mark Leonard, the guy's name is? He plays Spock's dad. He does a brilliant performance of that little monologue he gives in another timeline, which actually sets up an episode of Strange New Worlds, bizarrely. We could have been friends.
Yeah.
Because you've seen in Strange New Worlds, they have that episode where it doesn't go so well for them.
Yeah.
And the Romulan War happens and messes up the timeline for them.
It certainly is an interesting idea, and becoming the basis for many an episode of not just Star Trek, but conventional programs, detective programs, futuristic programs, where the two leaders, maybe the Russian tank leader versus the American tank leader kind of thing, and they end up having a kind of a respect for each other, even though they're sworn enemies.
I think it's the first time that we really talk about war properly. They're usually discovering strange new worlds. They're usually out finding new things. And I'm sure we all know that Gene Roddenberry was such a hippie. He didn't really want to portray war very much. And they respected that right up until the minute that he died. And they, added an intergalactic horrible war to Deep Space Nine, didn't they? It's like, okay, the old man's gone. We can have war now. But so I think that so much has been solved, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they do it. I didn't hear them do it in the original series, but definitely the next generation, they finally converted to the metric system, which is huge. It just shows that,
Yes.
humanity, including
Progress.
Americans, have come
Yes.
around to common sense. They've also eradicated poverty. And, there is no poverty. There is no, everybody's educated. Everybody's happy. All of the entire human race is thriving.
Yeah.
And the Romulans is that first time when you go, but there is still darkness here. And there is still the danger of, there's the whole reason there's a neutral zone is that there's a danger that we could annihilate one another if we didn't have a neutral zone,
Because
it's dark.
It's because it's quite interesting what we say about, we're always told about Jean's vision, and at this early on, this episode also plays on themes of bigotry quite hard, because when they see that the Romulans essentially look like Spock, there's a lot of the crew almost start to turn on Spock just through sheer paranoia. And it's like when he saves their life down at the engineering room, that's when they regain his trust. But there is that, how distrust and paranoia can just consume people and just turn. It's a theme that's been revisited quite a few times. The drumhead was another fantastic example in TNG. But yeah, I mean, I just rewatched it at the weekend. Yeah, I can see why people love this. The tension. Although there is one moment which is just very silly. It's that they go on silent running and the crews have to be silent even though they're a good few thousand meters apart in space. And if someone makes a noise on the Enterprise that alerts the Romulans, and I'm this is stretching it. I know sometimes you have, but yeah, they kind of, silent running would be right. We turn the engines and they can't detect the vibrations through the set, but literally that there's a noise on the ship that the Romulans can hear at that distance is a bit. That was a bit silly. That's the one moment that took me out for a second.
There were some.
I don't know. Have you seen the size of their ears?
Every episode has something.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say? The size of their ears?
Yes. What was it you said about bigotry and prejudice now, Martin? And you're going straight in there with the anti-Romulan sentiment.
Yeah.
That's so evil. I'm trying to figure out what the original air date was.
Oh, it'll be, you just need to
just
look it up
ignore me.
on
It would have been
Wikipedia,
66 or 67 in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was December 15th, 1966.
Okay. And so the number 3.
So we're
when I ran
talking. Sorry, I was just going to say that. I mean, it was a really, really tense time. It was very fraught.
Yeah.
I believe 66 was the year that Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Right.
3 for Kennedy?
Yep. Because
maybe Bobby Kennedy was after.
Yeah.
Bobby Kennedy might have even been. Actually, I think Bobby Kennedy might have been 66.
Yeah.
Medgar Evers was like 64. So there was a lot of that going on. And
yeah.
I think that they probably, I wonder how much at the time people were aware of the parallels. And I don't think they could have not been.
Yeah.
But perhaps people were just trying to watch it as lighthearted entertainment. But it isn't that lighthearted. These are some really deep themes,
Yeah. It's quite a lot of echoes of Twilight Zone. When you look at Twilight Zone, Rod Serling's a genius, by the way. I'll say this so many times on this podcast, but what he was doing on 1950s TV and how much he was pushing themes of anti-racism and how, like, say, look at us, we're being too paranoid here and tolerant, and people still, at the time, they just thought Twilight Zone, it's a wee bit of shock and suspense, but it must have been, it does plant seeds in you. You've got to be taking these themes in, I think. It can't just go over everyone's heads. Like, even if you're not aware of it, it's taking hold in your brain, some of the ideas that are coming across in the show.
Exactly. I think you have to actually do quite a lot of mental gymnastics and be very, very deliberate in saying that they're not the same thing. Like, I like Spock, but that black guy down the street, I don't like him. I think it's very possible to do that because our brains are interesting.
Yep.
It's strange.
Any last thoughts?
Funny you mentioned that because I think it's very true that I couldn't refer to anything in particular, but I'm aware of a few studies and research things where people would get into, say, an argument or there might be some impoverished children living in a poor neighbourhood. The argument thing applies to almost anybody on the planet, so I guess that's more appropriate. The way you would respond is generally from amongst the things that you've seen, and therefore you think that's your tool set. You've watched somebody chop down a tree, they pick up an axe or a saw, that's the thing that you're going to go for when you go to chop down a tree. You've never seen them use a chainsaw before. You wouldn't even think of it. And the same in arguments or judgment of other people or the possibilities that might be in the future. If you were only possibilities you've seen are possibilities that are bad ones, that's the choice you're going to think that you have in your head. And you say, well, if I contribute to this war or if I don't contribute to this war, it's either going to be bad this way or bad that way. But when you've seen an example of somebody portraying that actually there's a third way to go and it could be a good outcome, then that becomes part of your tool set, or it does after you've seen it a few times. And as you say, when you introduce these ideas that perhaps we're all just being a bit too racist, there is a nicer way. People at least have that in there, and it's an option for them to go to. And I think that's hugely important.
I was surprised you just didn't reach out and neck pinch me over the web there as well. We've got a comment come in from a viewer. How do you see Spock's role as a touchstone for neurodivergent viewers? He wasn't written as autistic, yet he's become a neurodivergent. Yeah, very much. And I think in nearly every Star Trek show, there has been a character who, not explicitly written as being neurodivergent or autistic, they have become, a lot of people latched on, like Data, I think more so than Spock. I mean, I know so many neurodivergent Star Trek fans and they have latched on to Data so much. And no wonder, he is awesome. But Spock as well, like...
Don't know anything about that. Nope. Never thought about that.
Yeah.
Your eyes,
but I say each one, then
differently.
Yeah, but recently, I don't know what you think of Discovery, but in Discovery, you had the character of Tilly, and I think they did actually say she was autistic, the character.
I love Tilly. I love Tilly, but the thing is, she's the opposite. She's not, emotionless. She's
over emotional.
Like me, talks too much at the wrong times. And
yeah, she's just got the filter's not there, and just that little moment she had where, and some people are upset, oh, they can't have an F-bomb, but I said, it was so perfect though. That's her character and just her enthusiasm. This is so awesome. And like just when Stamets.
Yeah, using it as an adjective and using it in a positive context.
Yeah. But the way Stamets responds, it's like they're both neurodivergent, but in just presenting in different ways, because he's like, yeah, this is awesome. Like she's just doing it in the totally exuberant ways. No, going back, yes, Spock definitely could be seen that way. I can see.
For sure.
And then
I love the idea that, well, I think it's important that we kind of acknowledge that neurodivergence is, as a term, is quite new. So I don't think we've conceptualized it correctly yet. I think it's interesting because I don't know, I haven't done the scientific reading, but from what I've read on Instagram, the group of behaviors that they identify as autistic, there's a certain group of behaviors that identify as ADHD, and never the twain should meet. And these are so clearly different things that we're going to call them different things. Now it turns out, and I don't know how true the statistic is, but they say 70% of this is comorbid. So if I have certain things that are ADHD and certain things that are autistic, and I just was masking one or both of those very, very well, clearly those two ways of identifying human beings aren't accurate. They're not helpful. I think that the term neurodivergent is really good for now. It's good that we use it now in 2025 because we need one. We need an umbrella term. But I think in the 60s, they would have been saying, we all know somebody who is a little bit not that emotional, perhaps a bit introverted, doesn't want to make decisions based on emotion, wants to make decisions based on logic. And I think that Spock absolutely was written to stand in for those people. So while they would say, oh, well, he wasn't written as neurodivergent or autistic. Okay, he didn't have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
But we all know that there's a percentage of the population like that.
Yeah.
So I think that point is moot. I think he was.
Yeah.
I think he was. I'm just
I
going to
think-
choose to disbelieve everything that they've said and say that.
Yeah. But probably at the time when it was airing, it was like people who were neurodivergent and didn't have the language and they didn't have the language yet to say that's what they were. They probably just saw that in Spock and that they relate, and they didn't know why they were relating to him. So that's how I see things, like the way he is. And it's like well known as well, this has got to be brought up, that Leonard Nimoy was getting the bulk of the fan mail. And Shatner, again, he actually
Was
got really
he?
jealous and upset. It's that said the piles of letters were
Of
coming
course he
in.
did.
And the Spock pile was this high, and the Kirk pile was that high, and that's what led to the friction between them, which you don't see on screen. Which I think Leonard Nimoy and the cast they deserve a lot of credit for keeping that camaraderie on screen when behind the scenes, like Shatner was anything but at times.
I would.
It's true. I think Shatner could get away with a lot because he was always dismissive to everybody as Kirk. So he was dismissive to Spock as well. He wasn't rude exactly, but he was never overly friendly with anyone. Sorry, go on, Martin. What were you going to say?
Absolutely. I think the term neurodivergent is a lot of people would welcome that term and say it means exactly this. As we say at the OCON group meetings under various disguises, it's unusual. It's unusual for one meeting not to come up with the term "we're all on the spectrum somewhere." You know, everybody. It's a spectrum, and you're here on it, and I'm there on it, and we meet somewhere by virtue of the fact we're on the same spectrum. And if you want to define neurodivergent just now, define neurodivergent in 5 years, try defining communism or capitalism and see what the amount of different answers you get from everybody. But it's still they're still handy labels to point us in the right direction. And we didn't need any terms for it. You know, 4 or 5 generations ago, your great granny would have said, that guy's a useless git with people, but he's good with numbers. Put him in the office. And they said, that dizzy blown over there doesn't have a clue about the numbers. Don't put her near that, but put her on the desk. She's great with people, you know. And thereby, people realised that people were different. He's had these different natures long since before we had any terms for them. But I think that with it being a sci-fi show, they hit onto a winner with putting Spock in like that. It helped us as a character, as a plot device for the stories, to have someone who plays that emotionless character that you have to explain why there's a difficult situation on here, and it's because people are fucking weird, where they've got emotions. But you can explain it for the people who don't really understand it that obviously. And it was a fantastic idea to have Spock with some human blood in his heritage, you know, his mother. And that meant that he could relate to some emotional things, although it was difficult in there for, you know, like half the rest of us, by myself included. And when they made Data in TNG, they had he wasn't just an android, he had the emotion chip, which none of the other androids had, and that put him into the same
not to the movies.
into the same category, you know. Oh, actually, not the movie, but
I suppose
he wanted that. He
potential.
He was borderline on that. So yeah, and as I say, I think that's one of the huge appeals of the show to anybody who was completely normal, for use of a better description. They could just ignore those characters, but to all the rest of us who are on the spectrum, which is everybody, seeing these characters in there and having things explained was a huge help. But I found it very interesting what you said about Leonard Nimoy and the fan mail thing. And I just say, if you find that amusing or appealing, watch Galaxy Quest if you haven't done so already.
Oh God,
yes,
Galaxy Quest is so good.
Yes,
it's so good. It's just,
we're going to have to
it looks silly. And it's
Yeah.
not.
Not silly. It's
Well, was it?
it's really well done.
The
And
acting's amazing. The
and
writing's
Will
amazing. It's
Wheaton
all
said it.
amazing.
Was it Will Wheaton said it's the best Star Trek film ever made, in his view? It is a Star Trek movie, basically, and it's like he
Basically,
said
yeah.
he said
But I
he
was
wished
actually
the
just
he said he wished the TNG film the crew could have made that film, and he said it would have just been incredible.
Absolutely. And again, the
I wish the TNG crew could have made better films.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, we've got a lot of Star Trek.
But I do just to stay on Spock for a second. Oh, sorry. Yeah, a quick thing about Spock.
No.
Something I didn't realize until many, many years later was that emotions run deep in Vulcans, and I think I probably didn't realize it until I watched the Star Trek movie 2009, where they make a bit of a thing of that. But actually, that's shown in like episode 3 or 4. You know, the naked.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Naked Time.
Something. And it shows how badly affected Spock is when he loses his cool, and he gets quite maudlin, quite melancholy, which is really fascinating. They don't go into the history of it, but right from the start, that was baked in, that the emotion is there.
Yeah.
He's very, very skilled.
And I've got to say,
at hiding it.
One classic moment of that, I don't think, is it next season, Amok Time, isn't it? Season 2.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's season 1 anyway.
And it's that bit at the very end, and it's so hilarious as well. And it's just remember, it's when Kirk reappears, like Spock thought he was dead, and he just the biggest smile, Jim. And then it's like, yep, it's good to see him. Yeah, he immediately corrects himself. It's so perfect.
Yeah. So he's keeping it all in, which is fascinating.
Yeah, fascinating. You slipped that one in there nicely.
That wasn't even deliberate.
Yes, yeah. And so I think because one of the things we're not taught is some of the designs in this. What can you say about the Enterprise as a piece of design that is not already? It is beautiful. It is just, that shape is just.
It is beautiful.
It's, you see
the thing is, it's
swirling along.
The design. Oh, you mean the outside of it?
Yeah, just the outside.
I was thinking
itself.
I went to the inside. I went to the bridge immediately in my head. The outside. Yeah. Talking about the outside of it, though, that beautiful little model that they just carry across the screen.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. It's very.
It's just it's
curvy.
One iconic bit of design, isn't it? It's just there's so much been said about the Enterprise. You can't say much more.
It sets the precedent, but I have to say, talking of people being neurodivergent or just people who are just easily annoyed by small things. At the start of the original series, putting a little model in front, it comes from the left to the right, from the back to the front, back to front, left to right, and then it appears on the right to left, but also from the back to the front. Somewhere in there, it's gone back behind them, and I want to shoot whoever designed that little bit of It's not coming from me. If it came
bad continuity,
it's bad continuity. Just upsets me every time.
Yes. Yeah, but talking about the inside's classic design as well. Classic retro 60s, the kind of futurism on display. I think it's just gorgeous to look at.
I think it's so new. It was so new, the 60s design. But I think, and people have made this comment that Star Trek was created to sell color TVs. And color was so new. And you're looking at it now, and I know that what we're seeing on Netflix probably is digitally remastered, isn't it? And it's probably a bit brighter than what they saw. But imagine that. You've only ever really seen black and white television before. Original programming that's not a live event of some kind. And there's so much color. It's very, very saturated color. It's not just grays and browns. There's a lot of really, the colors are awful. I mean, that whole green mustard, is it green? Is it yellow? Is it brown? Nobody knows. Awful, awful color. But it was a color.
Yeah, it's what?
Something, I just think, it was beautiful.
The red and the blues of the uniforms were very, very appealing. It's like when you were a kid and you opened up a box of Quality Streets back then and those pink wrappers, and then the foil inside them had that aluminium dyed stained pinkness that you can't get it in anywhere else. And the same with the purples and the yellows. If you remember the freshness of a kid seeing those colours and how bright they are, That's kind of what the Star Trek uniforms and all the displays on the bridge were like. Yeah. And to see that for the first time on colour telly would have been make an impression for sure.
Can only imagine.
Yeah.
Was the ship itself? It's really similar to the Next Generation version, isn't it? They're quite they're kind of similar in style.
Yeah, similar design. It's kind of kept on what we obviously now know it was a Constitution class, and this is incredible to think. We don't see another version of a Federation ship until Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. That's the first time you see any other variant of Starfleet vessel. It's amazing. You would not think that now. You'd think...
that's true, because... Yeah.
And I've got to say this...
But they're usually rescuing people that they've either chased into an asteroid or like...
I've got to say, this is one thing, and it's the only Star Trek show which really captured this. I think it's probably because of the limitations. They couldn't have heaps of Starfleet vessels, but you really get to sense this crew is on their own in the frontier. There's actually a feeling of isolation. You don't get that with TNG or even Voyager. I never really felt, they're out here on their own and we don't know. Well, Voyager was just, there was that feeling of safe comfort. But with this crew, it's like, what's going to happen? Will they actually survive?
Yeah.
There is proper tension to it.
Absolutely.
Why was that with Voyager, though? Because they were in, well, I suppose they were in a quadrant that had been mapped. They at least knew there was a quadrant. Whereas in the original series, they probably didn't even know. Maybe the quadrants hadn't been defined yet.
Yeah. I think it's just the way they made the show.
But you're
and all
absolutely
that.
right.
And the way and the performances, it just felt like, this crew's going to be fine all the time. They've got nothing to worry about. It was just and also, I've got to say about here, so good the holodeck is in here. There's good holodeck episodes, there's bad ones, but when it just like, they really had to think out their episodes here. They couldn't just, we don't have an idea, let's go for a holodeck episode.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. They couldn't do that. Well, to be fair, it was all back in you then, and people were probably just accepted anything. And the design of the bridge was great. But sometimes when you looked at them, they're shaking when they were hit by a disruptor or a photon from somebody else, and you can see somebody jumps, and then if you look closely, somebody else jumps a little bit later than them, and you can see something that's very obviously a toilet tube, cardboard tube of toilet roll, painted red, that looks like if they would snap off and they're going to grab it, and then they're going at that not tube because they know it's going to break. There was some limitations and in their budget of special effects, and of course the classic episode of the original Gorn. The original Gorn fight.
Yeah, how have we not mentioned that?
Come on.
Some of what, as we now know it, the fighting style Trek Fu fully on display there.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
If there's anything that wasn't, I don't think that Gorn would frighten kiddies outside McDonald's now. He would be allowed to hand out balloons. He was so not frightening and obviously just a man who couldn't move fast because he couldn't see out of his costume.
Yeah, and the punches.
Exactly.
It's like so telegraphed.
Yeah. It's still one of the favorite. It's still one of the favorite episodes, I think, amongst.
Oh yeah, it's an iconic episode because of that. In a way, it's got that. There's an episode.
Sorry.
Arena, the fight with the Gorn, the big lizard man.
The big lizard man that can only move slowly, and he's put on a planet with Captain Kirk and this lizard man who's obviously like a starship captain kind of equivalent to battle it out, and the lizard just goes so slowly. When we was at a Trek convention in Birmingham in 2016, one of the things you could do was go on one of the smaller stage sets in one of the smaller halls and fight the Gorn. You couldn't actually punch the guy because, that was against the rules. Pretend to have a go at the Gorn, which was hilarious.
Choreograph a fight with the Gorn.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And it was very busy.
And I think there's one last episode, which was in our running, Space Seed, which is fantastic. If you're going to give Kirk an enemy, get another actor who's fabulously over the top in Ricardo Montalban. They're just amazing. Such two of the hammiest actors going at each other. And it's fantastic stuff.
And Ricardo
And
Montalban,
also, it's the prequel to Wrath of Khan.
as always, wearing a shirt that's open down to about his tummy to show off his chest. But
oh yeah, those pecs, the famous pecs.
There's absolutely no doubt he's got a very strong, incredible screen presence.
Yeah,
I would say certainly more than Kirk.
Really?
Oh,
More than Kirk?
The cat and the pigeons there. Oh, sorry. Disgust.
Yes. I don't know.
Shatner wouldn't have liked that.
He would not like.
And he definitely didn't like that. Probably the ladies were looking at Ricardo Montalban's pecs over his. I would definitely wouldn't have. William Shatner wouldn't have like that.
It's certainly addressed the issue. I'm sure you have probably both seen the IT Crowd, and
yes,
there's an episode where not Moss. What's the other guy called?
Roy.
Yeah, he bets Jen that he could get a date. He could get a date by putting an ad out complaining he was an absolute bar steward that didn't care anything about women, and someone would still be daft enough to answer the ad, which happens. You know, somebody answers the ad and they're following him around, and he's giving it like, oh yeah, oh, I'm a complete bar steward, you know, which is obviously not. But in that episode, the historian, the Earth historian, who just happens to be another incredibly good-looking woman with the Madonna style, you know, bra kind of thing.
Oh.
And she completely falls for him, even though he's a complete bar steward. And he's at one point he kind of knocks her to the ground and says, "Are you going to support me in taking over this ship or not?" And she's kind of like that. Yeah, you're a bar steward, but okay, yeah, I'm with you. You know, and that's it's a thing, but it's also a demonstration of just, you know, the inherent violence thing. And she comes good in the end. I just want to say she helps the captain out in the end. She comes to her senses.
Yeah, that was something we were discussing before. We talked about the uniforms, as also we have to point out the uniforms on the women, and obviously were designed in a very specific way. I think it's like I will go for you.
They were
Eileen.
saving cloth.
Yes. Would you classify that as a skirt or an oversized belt? Where do you stand on that issue?
I think that certainly it needs to be discussed. I'm sure people were making comments at the time. Obviously, they intended it for it to be the way skirts were going. And they even did manage to sneak one of those in, at least one, into the first episode of The Next Generation. But you didn't see them. I think maybe Deanna had to wear one of those a little bit. I think they just wanted to show some continuity between the two, and then they retired that outfit. It's a lovely dress, and it's, you know, it's fine. But I think it's interesting that they thought that's where we were going, fashion-wise.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not offended by it exactly.
Yeah, it's just more looking at it from the practicality of that being a work uniform. Basically, it's like the guys have got. Basically, the men are allowed to be nice. Basically, the men can be nice and comfortable, whereas women can't really. They're too nervous to bend down in that thing. So
can't sit down. Can't do anything. Probably can't be a part of the landing party. Really.
Yep. Unless you're just standing at the sides, just sadly.
Which, to be fair, that's all you would be doing, because what else are you for?
Yes, which does come across quite a few times in these early episodes in the TOS. Like, I can't remember. It's like in Where No Man Has Gone Before. It's like, I can't remember her name. The blonde-haired. She's a psychologist or something. Yeah. Like, she appears on the bridge,
yes.
and then
I forgot
what's his name? Mitchell just starts hitting on her right in front of everyone. Basically, sexual harassment.
And she totally calls him on it. Yeah. Total sexual harassment. And then later on, she sort of semi-apologizes for it by saying, well, yes, professional women are a bit defensive or something like that. Yes. Professional women are da-da-da-da.
Yes, really cringe.
Why are you apologizing for calling him out on being a misogynist?
I don't know. Yeah. The 60s, that's all. That's how that phrase is going to be used a lot here. I think the 60s.
Yeah. It's like I was saying this earlier on, I think before we started the cast, that we did have a couple, I believe she was referred to as a doctor, and there is a psychologist in another episode, also blonde, also female, and I think she's referred to as a doctor. Uhura is a lieutenant, so she's quite, she's not, that's an officer, isn't it? Lieutenant would be an officer.
Yes, it is.
But the one that confused me was Nurse Chapel, because Nurse Chapel has stated early on she's joined the Enterprise because she's given up her role as a researcher, she's clearly a scientist. She's a biological or biochemical, something like that. And she was pursuing a very rewarding path of research. Yeah. And yet her title is nurse. Now, maybe they were thinking that nurse is a title, has more prestige in the 23rd century, which, that could have happened. But it does feel a little bit odd. And I do just want to point out as well what we discussed earlier on, which was that Nurse Chapel is played by Majel Barrett, who played everybody else, including the voice of the computer, Loxana Troy, number 1 in the pilot of the original series. And I think that's it. And also Gene Roddenberry's wife. She played that role as well.
And it's
I think that covers it.
Said she also had a cameo in that last season of Picard that brought a tear to the eye. Not that I was crying enough.
I haven't seen the last season.
Crew when they walked on the bridge of the D, and then you hear the voice, it's just, it's just, all the feelings came out then. Oh, you have to watch season 3 of Picard. I can't believe she's still
alive.
No, she's not.
I will. I definitely will.
Yeah, but season 3 of Picard, watch it.
Sorry, go on.
And there's just the episode when they finally get back to the old ship, and you will cry. Everyone cried. That was so emotional.
I'm sure I will. I definitely will.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of women, do we have time to talk about Yeoman Rand?
Yes, we can talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. I think
we can run over.
Yeoman Rand is just such a fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, just kind of to encapsulate this, did a bit of research on Yeoman Rand because I was fascinated by that her entire role. She was only in 8 episodes, and her entire role seemed to be to get assaulted. So Charlie, who was the 17-year-old who had ultimate power, tried to assault her. And in a scene that I would call, this is how to patriarchy, my son, William Shatner, Captain Kirk has to explain to Charlie that he can't have everything he wants, even if it's just a woman. And, after Charlie's got a bit of a crush on Yeoman Rand. And there are also, and then in The Enemy Within, Bad Kirk assaults her. And she has to then report that to good Kirk, but she doesn't know there are 2 Kirks. So she's being interrogated by the person that's just tried to rape her from her point of view. But she's saying things like, I didn't want to embarrass you, Captain Kirk. I wouldn't have said anything at all if blah, 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 somebody hadn't seen it or whatever. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And then, so I did a bit of research and discovered that actually, I believe her name was Grace Lee Whitney or something similar to that.
Yep.
The actress was fired, or she was let go, and she was told the reason she was let go is that they didn't really want Kirk to have only the one love interest. And I'm like, I didn't get that they were love interests. I got that Kirk treated her the way he treated everybody else, which was his for the taking if he wanted, but there didn't seem to be anything between them. Anyway, that to one side. That's the reason she was given, that she was fired, because they wanted him to have like a love interest every episode. But also she did come out years later, and say that she had been sexually assaulted by an executive on the show, of the show. And she thinks that had something to do with why she was let go, because she wasn't just meant to be a bit part. She was actually one of the female stars. And what they told her was, we have to let someone go, and we can't fire Nichelle Nichols, First of all, she's a lieutenant. She's comms. She's really essential to the plot, but also perhaps there was something to do with, we're not firing the black woman. That's not happening. But there's a couple of blondes, so I'm going to let you go. And I just thought that was really, really tragic. And she had a bit of a tragic life, but she did come back. She had some help from DeForest Kelley said, these conventions. You should get on these conventions. So she did a few conventions. Yeah. And then Leonard Nimoy really championed her. And she was in most of the movies. And she was in lots of spin-off stuff as well. So anyway, just wanted to say, I'm sad that Yeoman Rand didn't last a bit longer on the original series.
Yep. And she also appears in quite the most famous Undiscovered Country. She's on Sulu's ship. I think she's the comms officer there.
Yes.
Yep.
Apparently she
Which-
and George Takei were supposed to have a spin-off themselves, and it was going to be called George
right.
and Gracie or something silly like that. And then it never happened. They did something else. They made, I don't know, The Next Generation instead, or they made something else instead.
Yeah. And it's interesting because this is just another daft moment that I remember is, do you remember the Voyager episode, which is set during the events of Undiscovered Country? And Janeway knocks the Yeoman Rand and takes her uniform and puts it on. But I said, you look at the two of them, they're built so very differently, but Janeway just slips into her uniform. It's just one of those silly Trek moments. Say that, I think...
The tricks of television.
Yes, and I think we probably mentioned the episode to skip as Charlie X when I found that such a difficult watch.
Really?
Yes, I did not enjoy it.
I thought it was brilliant.
And probably I'll probably give two. My other episode that I always is Mudd's Woman. I'm not a Harry Mudd fan. I just
I cannot believe that they reprised the role of Harry Mudd. What was that in?
That was in Discovery, but
it was Rainn Wilson.
The good thing, and see, a lot of people were upset at how Rainn played it, but I liked it that he was basically a psychopath. He was an evil psychopath.
Yes,
he's not a whereas in this, he's a charming, lovable rogue who's trafficking women.
I suppose. I think I don't find anything lovable about him. I think he's disgusting.
Yeah.
Either whether he's a psychopath or not, but I think both actors played him very well.
Yeah, but I preferred the Rainn one, that it's actually, it makes more sense what we know about him later, that he is basically he's more portrayed as being a dark character rather than this. It's like, oh, he's a jovial old character, just a harmless character. That's how they're trying to portray it in this.
Just a slave trader.
Yeah, just a happy old slave trader.
A lovable slave trader.
It's just women anyway he's trading. It's not like it's any dodgy.
I think because it was difficult to watch, it's actually one that I enjoyed watching the most. Maybe that makes me a masochist. But
yes.
Yeah, that was a hard watch. It was difficult to reckon with the themes of, you know, transporting women to be sold as wives and giving those women, they seem to be complicit in it. They seem to be sort of happy about, oh, yay, we're going to get husbands, minors. We love minors. You know, we don't care how they treat us or how stupid they are. And it's very sad. It's very sad. We could do a whole episode on that.
And I'm going to say my underrated episode, I don't know, is Taste of Armageddon. This episode does not get brought up enough, and I love it to bits. I always love watching it. If you remember, this is where they've been told there's this long bloody war, but they arrive on the planet and it seems so peaceful. And what it is the two factions, they run a simulation, calculate the casualties, and they say, right, 100 people died on our side, you 100 go to the chamber and you're killed. And it's like that monologue. Again, one of Shatner's better moments is about how you've made war something clean and easy, and it shouldn't be because you have to learn from it. And the way you start learning is just saying, I'm not going to kill today, and then you start from there. It's like, he does have his moments. Well, although we've bashed him a bit, there are moments where he does shine, and that's one of them. It's almost like a very Picard
kind of fair, he didn't write that.
Yeah. But it's like, it's almost like, that's something that Patrick Stewart could say quite... Yeah.
Well, he says it so well you'd believe he wrote it or said it.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. I get that he has to have a lot of good qualities to temper that cockiness, I think.
Yeah. You know, there are moments he does play it so well, but then there's moments he just goes off the rails a little bit. Like the line between William Shatner
over the top Shakespearean with the eyeliner.
Yes.
You know, if it wasn't for the eyeliner, I wouldn't have known in that Enemy Within episode, I wouldn't have known which one was the evil captain, except for that eyeliner, like something out of a Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton movie. You could tell he was the villain with those black eyes.
He really hemmed that up.
I think one more episode which kind of paved the way, created a Trek trope, was Squire of Gothos. Is well worth mentioning.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was basically the blueprint for Q.
Yeah, it was, yeah. The Harry Mudd and the Q have come back in so many guises. And as soon as I get into an episode of anything where I see that, I think, here we go. This is the old Squire of Gothos or Q episode or the Harry Mudd type episode. And it's a bit like,
Yeah.
If you got a hobby and you buy a magazine, like say photography, you buy the monthly magazine. For viewers that don't know what these things are, they're bits of paper that we used to use before computers and Instagram and shit like that, right? And that's where you got all your information from. And these bits of paper, they were published monthly in a shop. You would go and buy them, and every month it would be something different. And then January next year, it would be a different picture on the cover, but it was basically the same story pushed out again over 12 months. March would be all spring flowers, and summer would be polarized shots of blue beaches and things, but a different cover on the front. And I always think that you see it in lots of soap operas and everything, the daft Christmas episodes where you think, what the hell are they doing here? And I often feel that with the Mud and the Q episode.
Yeah. So overall, your thoughts on season 1? I would say, compared to like how other Trek seasons had their first seasons, this is really solid as a start. Season 1 TNG is unwatchable at times, basically. You really want to switch it. This, I think, you can get through all the episodes. I don't think there's anything you'd really switch off and just go, what the heck am I doing with my time right now?
It's a bit odd because...
I mean, go on.
It's a bit odd because you see, like I think like we're mentioning like episode 3 or 4 or something into it, that they all get infected by some virus that makes them uninhibited in a really dangerous way. That's the one where where Spock, you see Sulu's sword fencing skills, and it looks like a really silly episode, as the screenwriters are obviously using it as a vehicle for displaying the characters, exploring the characters' personalities a bit more thoroughly, and in that you see Spock becoming very emotional and crying, and it really demonstrates that he's got the human side, and that can happen. And then so it's got a purpose. And then like the Charlie X episode, I would say, well, I'm not really interested in seeing what some adolescent boy would do. I think we all know what an adolescent boy would do. He would get a crush and stuff. You forget that there's countries around the world where adolescent boys are given that kind of, or youngsters are given that kind of power. So it's got a genuine purpose to it. So I think all those things can be forgiven, even the silly episodes. I would say The Enemy Within, where Yeoman Rand gets attempted rape by the evil captain. I found that scene quite distressing, really. It was a bit more not like modern casualties, but it was, if you saw the terror in it, and as Eileen said, she's later on, she's been helped. She's been helped through the process of discovering what happened. In other words, interrogated by the guy that's done it and 2 other male members holding her by the shoulders in the fucking bridge in front of everybody. And you're like, Jesus Christ, where are we going with?
Yeah.
That's the one episode.
The interesting thing with that too, that was, sorry, I know I'm delving into this too much, but prior to that, she says to Captain Kirk, you have to talk to Charlie because he's, she's trying to warn him that this could get very dangerous for me and I might have to hurt him. And of course, the implication being that she also could get hurt by him. And they're all like, sure. So there's that, not at all listening to the warning that this woman is going, no, I've seen this before. I know what's going to happen here. And that's all very upsetting. And that's why I couldn't possibly miss that episode. I couldn't turn it off. And it's also that every episode is so much deeper than, you've got lots of lighthearted episodes of television, lots of lighthearted episodes of sci-fi. But every episode that I've watched of season 1 of the original series was really, really deep and really clever. So for those reasons, I wouldn't want to give them a miss, but also because we're watching the 60s and we can compare it, what was happening in that kind of commentary and all that. In the fashion, the color, everything about it is very 60s, even though it's 23rd century. And I think when we get to the stage where we can watch the next generation and go, is that what the 80s was like? Maybe it'll be just as interesting. But season 1 is pretty tough. It's pretty tough to get through.
Yeah.
Of the
But,
Next Generation, I mean.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. But I said season 1 TOS is solid and there's classic episodes. Again, I can't recall many other Star Trek shows having classic episodes in their first season. Probably Deep Space Nine is the only one and I had one Stone Cold classic episode, like Duet, in its first season, which is incredible. But all the
Okay.
others, their first seasons are so shaky, but this is like, even like from that first episode where the one with again, how you interpret like the beast that goes around sucking the salt out of men. And of course, it's a woman that's doing it. So yeah, whatever subtext is going on there. Yeah. Yeah.
What was
Sorry, I brought my
fascinating
kind
about
of,
that was that
Tumbleweed.
not only could it shapeshift or
yes, it
project,
could.
but it could also read
Basically,
lines.
the men
It would project
also,
what you wanted to see.
yes. Yep, that's right. And that's the very first episode. Yeah. But with that, probably the last thing I'll leave
Yeah.
on is the sets. Now, everyone makes fun, but I think they work great because they do feel like alien worlds for me when I
think
was watching this. Like when they say it's a remote outpost, for some reason, that empty set makes it feel like this is a remote outpost on the edge of space. I don't know why. It's just, there's that feeling of it there.
I think their acting is actually better than we give them credit for, because, you know, when they beam down and all of a sudden they kind of looked out round, and yeah, they're acting like they are on a strange planet. And I would say kudos to every one of them in every episode where they're on the transporter. If they're frozen like playing statues in the school gym hall all over again. They're all statues for a moment, then come alive after being transported. And, you know, you believe they're being transported on that transporter, where obviously they're just like, everybody stand, go.
Apparently, did you hear about this? So the doors were operated manually, obviously, even though they look like they're automatic. And the way that they did that was the person who was about to go through the door, the actor that was about to walk through the door, had to stand very, very still. And then somebody who you couldn't see would be opening the door, and then they would speed that film up. And that it actually just happened in real time. I'd heard that, but I wasn't sure that was true or not. But I think that it's one of these amazing things with old technology that they really had just figured out how to do really excellent set design just in that square.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. I'm amazed actually that when it was remastered, we didn't see a lot of really shoddy plaster of Paris backgrounds, and because there's a lot of rock walls, wasn't there?
Yeah. They mostly,
but they all work. They look like rock.
I've got to say, talk about the remasters. This is one of the less offensive remastering of a classic material I've seen. It's just external shots, and they've not gone too overboard. It does kind of fit in. You're not suddenly, it's noticeable, but it's not like totally jarring when the new CGI stuff comes in.
Yeah. Well, because it does look very good. It's just that I think we have a better kind of idea of what the makeup and the their faces are much clearer than they would otherwise be.
I think that's just the HD. I think that's just the HD remaster. As far as I know, they didn't touch anything else up apart from a lot of the space scenes, because they just said it's what they could. They said, but just sticking CGI in like the bridge scenes would just be too obvious. You know, it's 60s footage at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. So with that, I think we can come to the end.
I think they did a very good job.
Yeah. Martin, I think you know what comes next. It's the trivia round. You've been watching the show. So 10 questions about season 1, guys. Let's see how well you know.
Okay, so bad.
Right. In the man trap, what substance does the creature drain from humans?
Oh, is that the first one? Salt.
Yes, salt. That's right. Okay. In which episode introduced the character of Harry Mudd for the first time?
Mudd's Women?
Mudd's Women.
Yep, that's right. In Charlie X, what ship does Charlie destroy with his mind?
The
You're on the right
one
path.
that he was just taking off, and it's heading back.
Yeah.
It's a science vessel.
The Antares. You were almost like when you were doing your
Antares.
I was like, I was like, oh, you're almost getting it.
Getting there.
Okay, number 4. What message did the Horta leave on the floor in Devil in the Dark?
I think that's the one I didn't see. That's what one I didn't catch up on. Was that like episode 28 or 27 or something weird? No, I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say peace.
No, it's No Kill I.
Come on, that's pretty close.
Yes. Right. In Taste of Armageddon, why did I pronounce that? In Taste of Armageddon, Eminar has been at war with which planet for over 500 years?
Oh,
The third planet,
Eminar has been at war with who?
the
I need
Ventrons.
to get the Jeopardy. It's Vendicar.
Come on, that was pretty close again. Ventrons, Vendicar. Come on, they both started with a V.
And for some reason, my headphones have just disconnected from the Bluetooth there. So I'm going to have to just take these off and finish the show like this. Wonderful technology. What was the only two-part episode in the entire original series, first appearing in season 1?
it's the one about Spock. What's it called? They're all about Spock, but I don't know.
The Menagerie.
No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the
The Menagerie.
Menagerie with Captain Pike, Mutiny, part 1, part 2.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got that one totally wrong.
Okay. Leonard Bones McCoy comes from which U.S. state?
Montana?
No.
Idaho.
Martin?
Is that a state?
No.
Carolina.
It's always on his
Southern,
mind.
isn't he?
It's
Texas?
on his mind. It's always on his mind.
Georgia.
Yes. I was trying to think of a clue.
How did you get?
Thanks for that.
Okay, the Enterprise shuttle was named after which famous astronomer? The first shuttlecraft.
Galileo.
Yes,
Well
correct.
done.
Okay, wait a minute. I have a question. I didn't know they had a shuttle. And the reason I didn't know they had a shuttle was that Sulu almost died because the transporter malfunctioned. And I'm like, can't just send the shuttle. And they also kept going, well, we'll transport them down some heaters, but then they split in two, so the heaters don't work. And it's like, coats? Blankets? Shelter of some description to keep these poor men from dying?
Yep.
Shuttlecraft? Anyway, sorry.
So, who was the first character to be on the receiving end of the Spock's nerve pinch? Who was the first character to get nerve pinched?
Charlie.
No. Martin.
That's toughy. No,
It was early.
no idea.
It was
It was
Kirk.
really early.
Captain Kirk was the first person to get a nerve punch.
Was it Evil Kirk?
Yeah, it was Evil Kirk. He's the first person to get a nerve punch on screen.
Wow.
So how many episodes were produced of season 1? How many episodes are there?
I'm going to say
30.
30.
No, it's 29 were produced. I think it's 29. So you're very, very
because
close.
we're not including the cage.
All right, so there we go. That is our look at Star Trek TOS season 1. My voice is going. I'm losing my capacity for words at the moment. But thanks, guys, for coming along. Thanks, Martin, and thanks, Eileen, for your first. Will you be coming back? Are you wanting to do another delve into madness here?
Absolutely. If you have me back,
Just wait
Yeah,
till we get to season 3 and
if you
Spock
invite
Brain
me
and
back,
all
I'm
that. We're going to have a lot to say for that.
oh God, I can't wait.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, everyone, for watching. There was quite a lot of folk watching. The chat room was quite busy. And we'll see you all very soon. Right. Good night, everyone. Thanks for this. And just again, good night.
Thanks,
Enjoy your
everyone.
Live
evening.
long and prosper.